down there. But I think that's the only thing, right? I wasn't planning to say anything. All right. All right. All set? Okay. Could call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Faticante.
Here.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Ms. Martin.
Here.
Mr. McHugh.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Ms. Doherty.
Here.
7 present.
Okay, and this evening we have some students throughout the school system with us who have been very busy reading this summer. We're delighted to have everybody here, and we have some awards we're going to present in just a few minutes. Before we do that, I'd ask Superintendent Dr. Carla Brooks-Bear to tell us a little bit about the summer reading program and why we have so many students with us this evening.
The summer reading program was supported by the curriculum subcommittee and the school committee as a whole, and an effort on our part to encourage the habit of reading for the sheer joy of it. And I'd like Deputy Superintendent Jean Franco to describe a little bit more about the program and about the youngsters who are here this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'd like to welcome all our parents and children here this evening. This summer, we sent a message home to every home in the city of Lowell asking children to become avid readers this summer by reading a minimum of 15 to 30 minutes a day. We got a great response. Our children in the city of Lowell, for our first year, read over 15,000 books. 15,000 books are not read by just the children alone. It comes from our partners. We went to community businesses, we went to CTI, we went to the Boys and Girls Clubs, other places, and spoke to people to talk about kids reading in the summer. Our parents, who made sure children had books that they read and they enjoyed. The magic that our children enjoyed through reading cannot be measured. All we know is creating readers creates successful children in education, high school graduates, and our future college students. We are proud to present these students who happen to be the lucky winners of a drawing in each one of their building. There are many more children who we couldn't give a special prize to. However, we wanted to honor a representative of each of our 25 schools. So we thank you all for being here, and we are very proud of you and your children for the contribution you've made this summer to their future reading and growth. So thank you. I'm going to ask at this time for Mayor Martin to congratulate the children. I'll call them up by name. They're in alphabetical order by school. And Mayor Martin, if you maybe want to go to the children can come up here to you, and we'll give these certificates to them. The prize this evening is a $25 gift certificate to Barnes & Noble. to each student who read. So reading creates more readers, and that's thanks for support from our committee and the use of some grant funding that we did to support this particular initiative. So you may choose the books that you love and continue your reading in your spare time. So let's begin with the Bailey School. James McBreen. Samantha Daniel. And Catherine Sweeney. We're going to continue with the Bartlett School. Tonight we have with us Alan Touch. Two other award winners from the Bartlett School are Idalis Garcia and Janelle Cox. They are not with us tonight, but their prizes will be forwarded to their principals to be sent home with the children. Next school, Butler School, is also not with us. I'd like to announce Lavi Lau, Asia Neek, and Darith Lai, who are not with us this evening, but will get their awards at home. Daily School students, come forward. First, I'd like to announce Rosa Vai, or Vay. Next, Caroline Reese. And Noah Tai. From the Greenout School, I'd like to announce Jocelyn Rios. Jessica Achila, sorry, honey, thank you. And another winner is Jani Khan, who's not with us today. From the Laurel East School, Stephen Follensby. Two other winners from the Laurel East School who are not with us this evening are Haley Burdick and Jessica Peck. Here with us from the Lincoln School, I'd like to announce Finn Kruger Kane. Finn. Mara Vin. And Christina Som. Here with us from the McAuliffe School, I'd like to announce Brian Holberg. Brian. Trina Tachtet. And Tyler Middlemiss. From the McAvenue, Kajal Patel. Matthew Donovan. And Natalie Sanchez. From the Moody School, I'd like to announce Evelyn Sorn. Evelyn? and McLean Rosen. And not with us tonight is Sonia Chataravong. I have to learn my name. Maury School. Felicia M. Felicia M. Felicia. Also, Parisha Bond and Reagan Sim won awards and they're not with us this evening. From the Merkland School, Chalinda Pang. Chalinda. Taida Han. And Sokana Chow. From the Pawtuckaville Memorial School, Zachary Zadon. Brendan Cronin. And Taylor Bean. Here from the Pine Arts School, Patrick Kander. Brandon Prue. And Brendan McHugh. Here from the Riley School, Cleveland Bogle. Cleveland Bogle. That's Cleveland. Paul Gaudette. And missing is Emma Chatavasang. From the Robinson School, our two students are not with us, but I'd like to mention Vana Un and Jessica Graham. From the Rogers School, Jordan Bradbury. Kason Sin Long. And Kathy, and Kathy Hung. From the Shaughnessy School, Cheyenne Keogh. Michaela Gonzalez. And John Cavalcanti. From the Stocklosa School, Asia Lun. Geglan Chin. Sharif. Sharif Atolbi is not here this evening. Or is that you? Oh, Sharif is here. Oh, good. Sharif. From the Sullivan School, Natalia Cruz. No? Sullivan School? Okay, Melinda Reed? Okay, Catherine. I'm sorry, Catherine Abraham. Sorry, I'm the wrong one. Thank you. Cross my eye. Melinda Reed, thank you, sorry. And Tyler Vega. From the Varnum School, Talia Cruz. Jessica Handele. And Grace Way. No, I don't think so. Wang School? Neil Bahat? Emily Primo? And Olivia Jocelyn. Oh, sorry. And Olivia Jocelyn. And last but never least, the Washington School. Melanie Fitzgerald. Darlene M. Massley Touch. Thank you to all. Oh, she wants a picture. Thank you so much. That doesn't soften them.
They were adorable, weren't they? Makes you worth living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gene.
Okay, we'll wait for the flash bulbs to stop so I can read the agenda. But the next item on the agenda, approval of the minutes. Oh, first, Ms. Franco, Madam Superintendent, I think the total number of books, I think, is worthy of comment. It's more than 15,000, which is more than one book per student across the entire school population. And that's excluding the high school. It's on, but, I mean, the light is lit. I don't know why it's not working. But
I'm
it's...
going to go see.
Through you, Your Honor.
Madam, Ms. Federicanti,
Where did the gift certificates come from, Your Honor?
they're from Barnes & Noble.
Oh, no, we purchased them with support from grant money and support from the curriculum subcommittee
Excellent.
in the school committee. So we made that a priority of any material money and grants. We provided those in the summer. So that's thanks to your support. So thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further comment on the summer reading program? Okay. A job well done by everybody who participated. Next is the approval of the school committee meeting minutes from the September 5th, 2007 meeting. Motion to approve by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Faticante. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved.
Q and Faticante, right?
Also, now, under permission to enter, Madam Superintendent, I believe there are several items.
Yes, several contracts, Your Honor. Safeway Training and Transportation Services Incorporated, $11,700 to provide special education transportation services, funded by the Special Education Transportation budget. YCN Transportation Incorporated, $10,834 to provide special education transportation, also for another student with special needs living outside of Lowell and being transported to a special education school. Dr. Patricia Treya, $11,728 to provide career development training services in peer mediation training at our middle schools, provided by the Safe and Drug-Free Schools grant. And the Revolving Museum, $26,112 to provide artistic-led, theme, project-based instruction for students who are enrolled in our extended time program at the Malloy Alternative School that's funded by the 21st Century Grant. The funding for that comes from the 21st Century Grant and the Title I grant.
Mr. McHugh.
Just could I get an explanation on the second one? If it says here that we have a student living in Norwood and that we're going to transport them to Walpole, so it's not a Lowell student, it's a student that's living in another community that we're transporting?
I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Lang to respond to that.
The first and the second one are actually both students that we're fiscally responsible for. They're special ed students living in group homes in those communities, and we're required to provide their transportation to their special ed school. It is more economical, cheaper for us to actually, instead of using our regular contracted vendor, which is from this immediate area, to contract with a special ed provider, which is closer to the schools, merely for cost. These two providers carry the same insurance requirements and meet the same criteria that our in-house special ed transportation vendor carries. And this is something we've actually done for the last couple of years, where we do have responsibility financially for these students based on their IEPs to provide service and transportation to and from their schools.
Okay, I guess it wasn't really so much the cost, because actually it's like $60 a day, so that's not outrageous, but it was just more of there was no explanation why we were paying for a student living in Norwood and being transported to a program in Walpole. So I thought it might be like from Lowell to Walpole, but your explanation regarding a group home at least answers that. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on these items? Is there a motion to approve by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. McHugh? Roll call, please.
Ms. Faticante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Next item on the agenda are memorials. We have several items this evening. First, a group offered by Ms. Faticante for Paul Sullivan, Lowell Sun columnist, WBZ radio talk show host, former talk show host at WLLH local station here, also a professor at Middlesex Community College, certainly will be missed in this community. For Evelyn White, the sister of Fred Simon, also a well-known local personality. Third, for Leonard Pete Pollard, the husband of Margaret Pollard, a retired McDonough City Magnet School clerk. And then several offered by the committee as a whole for Thomas Powers, Lowell High School science teacher, Helen Murphy, the mother of Robert Murphy, the Robinson School principal, Lowell High School teacher Mary Ham, and mother-in-law of Donna Murphy, McAuliffe paraprofessional, for Kelly Page, the husband of Katie Page, a Riley School teacher, and if I could add, for retired Superintendent Wynn in Tewksbury, whose son-in-law, Mike Palia, is an assistant in my office. If we could rise for a moment of silence and darken chambers in their memory, please. May they rest in peace. Under unfinished business, there is one item on the agenda that the superintendent report to the committee, the lack of working water bubblers at the Robinson School by Ms. Faticante.
Thank you, Your Honor. You never know where you're going to be when a staff member approaches you. And I happened to be at a fundraising event for my colleague Jim Leary. And a staff member had approached me at the event and spoke to me about this. I will be honest with you, Your Honor, that I did not know that there were only 3 working bubblers out of 12 at the Robinson School. Or only 4 working. I did not know this. I have now come to understand that we have subsequently began correcting the problem. Yes? Madam Superintendent?
There's a report that we put on your
Right.
desk this evening, and I'd be happy to have Assistant Superintendent Lang describe it.
Thank you. I did leave a report on your desk today. Brian
Well,
Curley
that,
had...
unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff on my desk.
This is the paper.
So to just leave it on my desk today doesn't mean I got to see it yet.
Okay. There is just a memorandum prepared by Mr. Curley through me to you that just lists as of yesterday the status of the bubblers at the school. In summary, he laid out the bubbler locations on each of the floors at the school. There are 12 bubblers at the school. 9 are currently functioning properly. 1 is functioning but has a low water pressure, so the city is addressing that. 1 is inoperable. There are parts on order for that particular bubbler, and then there is another bubbler that's actually obsolete and is going to be removed. So there's currently, 10 of the 12 bubblers are working, 9 fine, 1 with a little bit of low water pressure, and the other 2 are being addressed.
Thank you. Your Honor, when this person did speak to me, there were only 3 or 4 working bubblers. I know that some ticket orders were in place for the city to go up there and fix them. And Madam Superintendent, can you give me also the status in the bathroom situation at the Robinson?
If I recall properly from my conversation with Principal Murphy, who I was not able to talk to in the last several days, he's been on bereavement leave. All the bathrooms are open and accessible on the 2nd floor. On the 3rd floor, they are all accessible with keys, so that there's a way to sort of manage security. And on the 3rd floor, the bathrooms for several years have been locked to make sure there's appropriate supervision, so youngsters go to the 2nd floor if they need to when they need to use the bathrooms.
So basically, there's only 1 floor of bathroom available constantly, is that
No,
correct?
two are.
You can use a key,
Right.
but you have to go get the key.
Well, so students would get it from the classroom and use it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faticante. Any further discussion on this item? I don't believe any formal action.
You just say accept the report.
Motion to accept the report by Ms. Faticante, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Under the motions this evening, we have one motion offered by Mr. Leary, request that the superintendent provide the school committee current status of the technology department's reorganization recommendations. In addition, provide current status related to X2 as it pertains to Lowell High School scheduling. Second by Mr. McHugh. Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just this motion really, we had an initial motion on this in the spring, and I just wanted, I know we're doing a lot of things at the beginning of the school year. Just want to follow up because this is something that obviously is very important, not only from an educational standpoint, but from a cost-saving standpoint. The scheduling at Lowell High is going through its 2nd year with X2. I know that there's been significant improvements, but we want to really I think we want to do is get feedback in terms of how we can really get up higher, like to a 90-95% scheduling success at the beginning of the school year, maybe even higher than that. Granted, every year you're going to have some challenges that aren't, no matter how good your system is, you're not going to get 100%. I don't think that's ever happened, but I think we need to get as close as possible. I know that folks from the central office, Mr. Lang, Mr. Schleckman, I know there's an outside consultant that's involved as well with this, as well as the folks at the high school have been working hard on it. I'd like to see if they can come before the technology subcommittee once the scheduling has been completed for this year to really go over what worked, what didn't work, and what we're going to do to ensure that we improve even further. So I get, in a way, yeah, you have to acknowledge there was improvement over last year, but we need to get better at it. So that's really the premise of my motion. It's not to be critical. It's really to say, okay, we've had X2 for the whole system. The high school is a different dynamic where you're scheduling a lot more than any other, K through 8. So I think that's something we need to discuss and really work to ensure we're not having any issues or less issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Anything further on this motion? All those, Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. Just to let my colleague know, I believe we are trying to schedule a technology subcommittee pretty soon, within the next couple of weeks. And this was going to be on it. It definitely will be on it now. And we will address it at that time. And maybe if you did say in your motion, we can have those people present from the high school too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next item on the agenda are subcommittee reports. The first report is from the Curriculum Subcommittee, approval of the minutes of the September 5th, 2007 meeting. Ms. Martin's the chair of that subcommittee.
As you said, this is we had already entered in a verbal report at our last school committee meeting, so this is just accepting the written minutes from the Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee meeting from September 5th. If any members have anything to add, they could certainly do that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd submit it as a report of progress.
Okay, motion to accept the subcommittee report by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. McHugh. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The subcommittee report is approved. Next subcommittee report from the Personnel Subcommittee meeting of September 11, 2007. Ms. Martin.
Unfortunately, this report cannot be as brief as the previous one. The Personnel Subcommittee did meet on September 11th. Present were myself and my fellow member Kevin McHugh. We also had from the school committee Jackie Doherty, and from the administration we had Superintendent Carla Brooks-Bear, Susan Mulligan, our Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, and Patricia Dumont, who is a recently retired principal from the Washington school, who has been consulting with us on this project of revamping and really bringing up to industry standard our current employment policies that are in place throughout our district. This is a really quite significant task when we consider that many of the policies that are in place have been really just kind of existing without any real attention or updating, which, as we all know, when we talk about human resources law and all the other various requirements that are placed on us as employers, we need to remain very up to date and current in order to protect our staff and in order to protect the district as a whole. The entire personnel manual is divided into, let's see, 7 sections. It was the decision of the subcommittee that our time would be best used if we focused on the first section, and because it is slightly complicated, and we thought it might be a little easier to go through Section A, go through some of the critical points within Section A, and be able to make those comparisons, and then be able to move forward to consider each additional section in subsequent meetings. So what all of the school committee members have received is a basic packet made up of 3 pieces. The first is a blue sheet, which is the description of what is contained within Section A, and it's kind of a guide that will tell us exactly where the changes have happened from the old policies to the new, in order so that you have effective comparisons. We have the green is the existing policies. So you have a copy of the existing policies that have been in use throughout the district for several years now. And then the white, I'm sorry, see, it's a great system. And then the white represents the recommended changes based on the research and the work of Ms. Dumont and the rest of our administration staff. What I would like to recommend is that as you look at that blue page, there really are 2 critical areas that have been highlighted as important and really requiring attention from this full school committee. So I would like to ask if I could, Assistant Superintendent Mulligan, to please take us through AC and then this ADDA section, just so that all the committee are up to date and can understand the thought process behind those more significant changes.
Thank you, Committeewoman Martin. The first section that we were looking at was the non-discrimination and harassment policy, which is used upon initial hire and also was reviewed with every staff member at the beginning of each school year. So we found that that was very necessary to look at and to review in our meeting. You're going to see within the white packet the harassment, sexual harassment and racial harassment policies, as well as the affidavit, which is the sign-off form for both of those harassment policies. I'll just move on to the Corey policy, if that's agreeable with you, Ms. Martin.
With me, does anyone have any questions regarding, I mean, these are basically just bringing us up to date in terms of, current Massachusetts law and federal law. So, if not, I'd say if we could move forward with the Corey section.
Okay. The new Corey policy has been reviewed by Christine O'Connor, the city solicitor, and the language is all approved by her. Also was incorporated any new Corey language that was recommended last spring by any updates that came forward through Corey law. You're going to see that, as requested by the committee, we had asked for a section on a nationwide Corey search. That is still in progress. We have been in contact with the Senator Pangiotakis' office, in particular with DJ Corcoran. He's working with me on trying to arrange a meeting with the head of the Corey Bureau, which is Barry LaCroix, and his legal team, in order to get this piece of the Corey policy down pat, because we want as thorough and as comprehensive a Corey policy as possible. Currently, in the policy, you will note that the Corys are conducted in Massachusetts for everyone. For those people who are living out of state, mainly for New Hampshire and Maine, that's where our staff mainly resides, we are conducting those state Corys as well. Furthermore, we're looking at people's backgrounds. For instance, someone may have gone to college in Pennsylvania. So we are doing a criminal background check in the state of Pennsylvania as well. So people are telling us those backgrounds, and we are requesting those Corys in the different states that they have lived in or went to school in and so forth. So this is all contained in the policy, and I don't want to belabor the point, Committeewoman Martin, but this policy, as it stands right now, is the only thing that is missing is the nationwide background check, which we're currently in process.
Excellent. And as we said, obviously this has been an issue of particular interest and concern for this school committee. I do think that the updates that we've put in place allow us far greater protection and really have taken this process and made it an integral part and very tightly tied to all of the hiring practices and the ongoing review that we do of current staff. One point I would like to make that we discussed at the subcommittee meeting was this: there are costs associated, particularly with running Corey checks for out of state. Those costs are borne by new employees as prospective employees. That is part of the process they need to go through, and if Corys are necessary to be run in our surrounding states, that is a cost that is borne by the applicant and not by the school district. What I would like to recommend is that these certainly are the manual as a whole is something that I think is going to have a real impact on the way we work with our staff and the way we protect our staff. I would recommend to my fellow committee members that they do take the time to review some of these changes. Part of the reason in keeping us just using Section A was so that it was in a manageable and a far less overwhelming pile. So what I would recommend is that we will be rescheduling and having another personnel subcommittee, and I would encourage the fellow members to accept this as a report of progress with the understanding that there is still work ongoing to get us access to a nationwide Cory check, as well as to continue our review of each section as we go through it. And I'd submit that in the form of a motion.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Martin to accept the report as a report of progress. As I understand the motion, there's no recommendation for any changes at this point, or did I misunderstand?
My sense would be that if we're accepting it, we'd want to do the full review of each component and then accept it as one document at the end. So at this point, we wouldn't be implementing this, would be my sense.
Okay.
That it would be something that, as a report of progress, we go through the whole process, and then at the end, we'd accept it kind of en masse.
All right. Is there a second on the motion by Ms. Doherty? Mr. McHugh?
Yes, I'll second it. There's an important section, I know that we're trying to just talk about this. Under the Cory form, we're going to have the affidavit filled out as well, that every potential employee that would like to come on, that would basically sign that they're certifying that, you know, what they're telling us is the truth, and if it's not such, we actually have the opportunity to dismiss or fire them. I know that came up as part of this process, so I think that's a key proponent that will come out of this whole policy. I would recommend, I know we were talking about that, if we do go through a section, we should, and it's my opinion only, but we can talk about it later, is if we can come to an agreement on this section, we should adopt this section as part of it, because I think with the Cory policy, I'd like to see this new policy in place as soon as possible, rather than waiting till we review the whole policy manual, then come through with a final new policy manual. So I'm just going to put that out as a discussion or for opportunity, because I think right now we'd still be working under the old policy if we don't make any revisions to the new one. So if we want to adopt this policy, which is more in depth, I think it has more meat and substance to it than the existing one. You know, I don't have a problem with, after everyone had a chance to review the old and the new and compare. And I would encourage you to take this, because this is one of the important jobs that we have as far as the policies that we abide by and the school system abides by. So I think you should take the time. We're going to schedule. We're not going to try to rush this, because I think it's important. But I think everyone should take the time to read through them, compare the two, come to the next meeting, ask questions, find out what we can, because we can, if you feel strongly that something should be inserted, we still have that right as school committee members to do that. So I think that's an important task that we need to do so we can get through. But I would recommend at that point that we would then adopt this as our new section, and it could start the new policy manual to be formed as we go forward. I mean, I can hear from my colleagues on that, but I just think that the Cory one, to me, is one of the most important ones in this section that I'd want to see implemented ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
And I absolutely agree with you. The process that's in place in this document is already in place as a result of prior school committee action taken, whether it was through the personnel subcommittee or as a whole, really over the course of the last year. So what is represented in this document, the Cory portion of it, is what is currently being done. So I absolutely agree with my colleague that it is far more substantive than what we had in the past, but this is really just bringing the manual up to date with what prior school committee action had put in place. I don't know if that satisfies your concern.
Well, I guess it does, but I think there are other policies here that, as we go through, that may not be up to date, and it's not a real big deal, but this could take 6 months to get this thing done over time. I mean, with scheduling meetings, getting people's input, and if we get stuck on a policy, bantering back and forth, the whole manual, I would envision, would take 6 months to probably get it, gone through the full process to bring it forward for adoption. I'm not opposed. I'm not sure. If people feel they want to wait to the end, that's fine. But I just think if we go through the time to take a look at these and we bring recommendations back to adopt them, they can be adopted at that point, and you could start the new policy manual at that point, as these would be the policies as we move forward. So we wouldn't have to, and finally at the end, when we get to the end, you would have a full adoption of the manual. So it's just another way of looking at it. I mean, as long as the important ones are approved and we're moving forward, I'm all for that as well.
And I can say, I mean, I've obviously had an opportunity to review everything, so I'm very comfortable with this. So if my fellow committee members are comfortable with it, I certainly think we can do it as step by step as we go.
Madam Superintendent?
If I could also, we attached also a related policy, but from a different section of the policy book. Section G of the policy book has the staff hiring policy, and so the last white document in the packet, I believe, includes then the staff hiring policy. We thought the committee might want to see the two together, so because it makes between the two, it's kind of a full picture of the hiring and the query process
Section A and Section
and the rest of the personnel policies.
Let me just add, but even if we were to go with Mr. McHugh's approach, are these ready for adoption this evening? I don't believe so, right?
We'd do it for the next,
Right.
the next scheduled
right.
school committee meeting.
Right, so I don't think there's really any objection to taking it in step, Mr. McHugh, perhaps at the next meeting then. That'll be an agenda item.
Actually, that's what I'm not looking to do this tonight. I just think that, I think I want to encourage all my colleagues to look through these, but I'm not sure, maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent. So the staff hiring policy isn't adopted as of today, correct?
It represents our current practice.
Okay, so it's our current
It
practice.
is
but
it's
still
our
not
current practice,
adopted
but
as
our
a
current
policy.
practice had not been codified in the policy book, anywhere in the policy book. So to make this a policy that's coherent, speaks to the whole current practice, that's what this would be accomplishing.
Right, and I thought that was discussed at the subcommittee. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'd be more apt to, as we make that discussion move forward, so this would be an adopted policy in place, even though it is our current hiring procedures, it's still not the approved policy, so it would give us something. So I would wait till the next meeting, and then, hopefully we can get these approved at that point. Thank you.
So I have a first and second, just.
Any further discussion on the motion, which is to accept the report as a report of progress? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the report as a report of progress, say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next subcommittee report is the report of the Joint Finance and Facility Subcommittee, report on approval of the minutes of the September 13, 2007 meeting. Mr. Leahy is Facilities Chair, Mr. McHugh is Finance Chair.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Leahy.
you. Let's see here. We had the Joint Facilities and Finance Subcommittee meeting on Thursday, September 14th. At the meeting was Chairperson McHugh, myself, and James Leary, and committee member Jackie Doherty. Also, Superintendent Bear and Assistant Superintendent Lang. First on the agenda was the Morey School update. Assistant Superintendent Lang gave us a report or status on the construction at the new Morey School, success of the efforts to minimize the adverse impact of the construction on the students and the staff and the families currently at the Morey School. Things look like they're going well over there. They've got the footings in. They're getting ready for the steel to come. So things are moving right along. Let's see, and that was it for the Morey School. So things are going well. I did happen to, I'm over in that neighborhood. I took a ride by. I saw Commissioner Walsh. They're putting in another walkway for the students in the front of the school. So everybody's doing a great job over there. Second on the agenda item was the disposition of the old Butler School for on Gorham Street. Assistant Superintendent Lang confirmed for the subcommittee members that he and the superintendent see no future need for the old Butler site on Gorham Street, and as a school facility now, that the state has established regulations for school renovation and construction that prevent the city from building on that site. So we had a motion from Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. McHugh. The motion was to take necessary steps to notify the city manager and city council that the school committee has no further need to use the old Butler School for educational purposes. And that was approved 4-0. So we need to take a vote on that now.
Okay, so there's a motion then by Mr. Leahy to, what the proper
Motion by
term
Ms.
is-
Doherty, yeah.
Ms. Doherty to
Sure.
turn the
Turn the school
Butler
back.
School site, or the former Butler School site, back to the city for disposition. So moved and seconded by Mr. McHugh. Any discussion on that motion?
I think it's, Mr. Mayor, just, I think
Mr.
it's,
McHugh.
the time has taken place. I mean, we've now moved on from that project not moving forward. And then the new SBA regulations, we won't be getting the funding. So I think as part of this report, you'll see that we'll be looking at additional options and sites for other types of facilities. I think it's our fiscal responsibility to provide this back to the city so they can either use it for their own needs or possibly sell it off to a developer for something, potentially a business or something in that area. So I would definitely support that. Thank you.
All right. Why don't I read, there is an official language vote here. So the official vote is pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 15A, as amended, the School Committee of the City of Lowell hereby declares that the land with the buildings thereon known as the Benjamin F. Butler School located at 840 Gorham Street, Lowell, is no longer needed for school purposes or any other educational purposes, and further hereby transfers the care, custody, management, and control of said land and the buildings thereon to the City of Lowell to be used for such other municipal purpose as the appropriate officials may determine. That was so moved by Ms. Doherty and seconded by Mr. McHugh. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, roll call.
Miss Fattacante,
Yes.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
7 yeas, it's approved.
7 yeas, that item's approved. Is there anything
One
further on the
more
subcommittee
item on
report?
the, one more item that we discussed was the, to start talks for the site selection of the new George Sapasera School. At lengthy discussion, we, through the superintendent and with Assistant Superintendent Lang, we just outlined some advantages to having a school off of Middle Street now that the old Butler site is no longer needed. So there was a motion by Mr. Leary, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Request that the assistant, request the assistance of the city manager's office as well as the Department of Planning and Development to explore possible sites within the city of Lowell that may be considered appropriate locations to construct the new George N. Sapasera Elementary School. In this site review, the superintendent shall review the October 1st enrollment report data and most current long-range student enrollment projection to guide the decision process as it pertains to the site location, grade level, configuration of the new George N. Sapasera Elementary School. Approved 4-0. And the meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
Okay, so on that motion, so moved by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leary. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Motion to adopt the balance of the subcommittee report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. Next
Excuse me, Mayor.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I just have one question. Do you vote on this now at the city council, or is this now it's back to the city? Is the school now officially back?
I
Donate
believe
to the
that
city.
the vote we took tonight transfers care and custody of the school back under the city's authority, you know, the city manager's authority with the approval of the city council, which is required for any disposition. So the city will make an evaluation of appropriate uses for that and make a determination. So,
No,
yeah,
I was just curious that if if the city council needed to vote on it, or right now it's officially back to the city, so that was.
I don't believe the city council has the authority to reject the determination.
Okay, maybe they could clean up the site, it's a little
So-
dirty now,
They
though.
don't. They
Thank you.
Okay.
don't.
Okay, the next subcommittee report is a report of the Executive Session Personnel Subcommittee meeting of September 18, 2007. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. As has been the practice of the school committee, in September, we do conduct an evaluation of the performance of our superintendent. The full school committee met in executive session last evening, September 18th, and the meeting was attended by myself as chairperson of the personnel subcommittee. Also present from the school committee were Mayor Martin, Ms. Jackie Doherty, Mr. John Leahy, Mr. Jim Leary, and Mr. Kevin McHugh. We did go through the process of evaluation. We have, over the course of the last few years, developed a number of instruments that we use to conduct our evaluation, to offer us some structure as we go through this process. And the meeting itself really focused on 3 separate functions that we needed to conduct. The first was making a determination as to the superintendent's success in substantially achieving the 5 priority goals that had been selected by this committee last year for her to complete during the course of last school year, the 06-07 year. These individual priority goals were selected by the committee. As a group, we had gone through a list of, I think we had options of about 30 to 40 different goals that we chose to focus on these 5 as the most important that we wanted to see the superintendent focus on over the course of the last school year. As we went through the review, and as the superintendent herself had gone through the review, we looked at these 5 priority goals and saw that there were some that had been achieved substantially and others that had not. As we look at I'll just kind of look at the general areas. First was short and long-term maintenance and capital plan. That was felt to be substantially achieved. The FY08 budget process was also felt to be substantially achieved. There was a goal set at the Freshman Academy in terms of promotion, attendance, and reading achievement, where there was certainly significant progress made, but the ultimate goals that we had set had not been reached. Also, the grade 3 through 8 interventions for struggling readers showed progress, but the goal was not reached. And the final was a focus within the English language development program that's in place throughout the district, and that was indeed achieved. I think that the superintendent was very clear in stating that these were extremely challenging goals, and that's the way they really had been structured. And I think that it showed her recognition of exactly how difficult they were, in that she really did report to the committee that she herself felt that she had not reached them to a high enough level for us to be able to consider awarding the $5,000 bonus that is part of her annual contract. I think as the committee certainly discussed these goals and discussed their achievement, we did concur with her assessment, and a motion was made by Ms. Doherty and seconded by Mr. Leary to agree and concur with the superintendent's assessment that she had not, in fact, substantially achieved all 5 of her priority goals for 2006-07, and therefore would not be awarded her performance bonus of $5,000 for this year. That was passed by the subcommittee in executive session, and I believe it requires a public vote to be enacted, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess we would move forward with Ms. Doherty's motion, seconded by Mr. Leary.
So the motion is to concur with the assessment that the goals were not substantially achieved, and therefore there is no performance bonus awarded. So moved by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Leary. Any further any discussion on this?
I don't know if the superintendent would like to kind of comment on this process and the goals in terms of, what we were looking at and how we've been able to, as we move forward, how we're going to be changing those areas.
I think the goals were challenging. I welcome challenging goals. I think as we have more better and better data, in which we can establish as baseline data, it will be, since I'm committed to having goals that are measurable and that speak to the highest priorities of the school system in terms of student learning, as our ability to use and analyze data gets better, we'll have clearer baseline data and be able to set challenging but potentially reachable goals in the future.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I guess I'll just comment quickly on this, that what I did want to say is that I thank the superintendent for her honesty. She picked some challenging goals. She wasn't afraid to come out and say she didn't meet them. And it was, well, I mean, you gave it a good shot. There were tough challenges, and your honesty was to be commended, so thank you.
Okay. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, I'd just like to add this comment in terms of specifics, what we're talking about when we're saying challenging goals. I'd like to just give two quick examples of the goals that were not substantially achieved. One had to do with our freshman students last year. The superintendent's goal with the Freshman Academy was to have 80% of our first-year freshmen who complete the year receive a 90% attendance rate, which would have been up from 72.9% from the previous year. What we did achieve was 78.8% achieved 90% attendance. So we didn't quite hit that 80, but we saw real growth in that area, which is an area that's very important to all of us on the committee. Obviously, our students are not learning if they're not coming to school. Another of the stretch goals, the challenge goals that was not completely achieved, had to do with our grades 3 through 8 struggling readers. As the committee knows, we've put a great deal of investment in these new reading programs and interventions, giving these children extra time who are struggling with reading. And the superintendent's goal was that those students who have been identified as below grade level, that they would get this extra help, and that 80% of those students in 1 year would move out of that at-risk category, would be reading at grade level by the end of the year. What we did achieve was 44% of students who were at risk in the beginning of the year last year moved out. So once again, we didn't reach this very high goal of 80%, but we got 44% of our students in 1 year out of that at-risk reading level. Again, an accomplishment that's very important for us to move forward as a district. So I think that this whole concept of setting measurable stretch goals and to have it tied to a performance, I don't know of any other superintendent in the state who does that, who works with a committee like we're doing here. So even though we have to say, okay, we didn't substantially reach 4 out of the 5 goals this year, I think we've made significant progress in reaching toward those goals, and that is a success for our students and the district. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante,
So it would be yes.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, any additional on the report, Ms. Martin?
Yes, I'm sorry. The second area that we conducted during the meeting was the overall annual performance review of the superintendent. This review is certainly much broader than the priority goals and takes into account, I think, far more of the ongoing activities, the day-to-day management responsibilities that the superintendent holds, and kind of the larger educational issues that she faces as the administrative head of this district. As you look at and the members all certainly have the report, there are several different areas of responsibility that this instrument has been divided into. They do include relationships with the school committee, community relationships, staff and personnel relationships, educational leadership, business and finance, personal qualities, superintendent's image, managerial ability, personal characteristics, and decision-making ability. I think that, and again, this is an instrument that has been created over time so that the committee has a process that allows us to really touch on all the many, many different areas that the superintendent is ultimately responsible for, and really allows us to weigh in, I think, very clearly on how we feel performance measures are being met across, again, a broad range of criteria. Looking through, each one of the committee members participated, which actually I think is a first, I have to say, since I've been here, that everyone participated in the scoring, which was nice. As you go through obviously there are some areas that various members have differing opinions on. I'd actually, certainly encourage my colleagues to be able to share that once we submit this during this meeting. But I will say that as we sum up the whole total and break down all these many, many different measures of performance on a 1 to 5 scale, we did the final number, taking into account everybody's scoring, brought us to a 3.59. Just so everyone's aware of what that means, as I said, it is a 1 through 5 scale. 3 represents satisfactory, and 4 represents very good. So landing overall at a 3.59, I think certainly indicates that we are satisfied with the superintendent's performance, and I think certainly, well on our way to feeling it is a very good performance. And again, that is, the committee as a whole did participate, and we did have a really, I think, interesting conversation about the various areas that we found to be particularly important. And suggestions were made for the future, which I found to be very helpful. To kind of kick off an overall opinion, I would just like to say that having worked with this superintendent and having gone through this evaluation a number of times, I am consistently impressed with her professionalism, with her true understanding of educational issues, not only as they kind of face us here in Lowell, but as they kind of happen on a broader landscape. I think it's critically important that the issues that we face here in our community are not parochial in nature. I mean, everything we're facing here in Lowell is something that is a challenge that happens someplace else, and we can certainly learn from each other. And I think more importantly, and this is happening more and more, we're setting ourselves up as the industry standard. As we solve problems, other districts, other communities are looking to us as the benchmark. And I think Lowell deserves nothing less than that, to be in the position of the preeminent public school district, the one that is solving problems aggressively, creatively, and with great innovation and commitment. And I think that our superintendent recognizes that as a priority from this full committee, certainly. And I am pleased with the progress she's made in that direction. And I certainly think that the challenges we lay out for her in the upcoming year are significant and will represent a real stretch, not only for her, but for her entire management and administrative team. And I think that is the only way that we make significant progress that we can point to and be proud of, and know that we are all doing the job that we are sent here to do, in terms of accepting nothing less than the absolute best for our students, for the families we serve, and for the greater community to whom we're responsible. So I thank the superintendent for the work that she's done. She has taught me a great deal in terms of how to judge and how to make qualified decisions about educational initiatives. And I think as we move forward, I'm quite confident that we will continue in a very positive vein. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would open it up to all my other colleagues to introduce their individual reflections.
Okay. Any additional comments from members of the committee? Mr. McHugh.
Just briefly, going through this process is, I think, a good process. I think it has, with 75 different questions, opportunities to evaluate somebody, gives you an in-depth look at how they do their job performance. I've said it over the years, and I still say I give her highest remarks for the superintendent on her educational leadership and her curriculum strength. Having been here now 10 years, I've seen what this system has gone through, and there have been new reading programs. I mean, when I first started to look and getting involved in running, I've always said that we need to focus more time on the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and that's what we've done. I mean, the superintendent's come in and started a reading program, was her first task. I'll never forget that, because having had a child in grade 1 at the time and introduced to the new reading program 7 years ago, I believe, now my child's in the 8th grade, I can see the benefits you can start to see those MCAS scores of those students. If you look at that subgroup, that those children are doing very well. And I think when we get to the MCAS results, that's why I always like to look at it. How has a student in the city of Lowell who started from grade 1 and progressed through our system, how are they doing? Not to say the other children aren't doing well, but that'll show you a true test of time where these programs have come from, where they've gone. We've now instituted more time on math. We have additional reading programs to help our learners who need assistance. I really see that those basics have really become the focus of this committee, the administration, because that's what it takes to work. So I gave her highest remarks in the curriculum. And I always say, with that said, you can't do everything very, very well. We all like to think we can, but I think there's always a side that you can say. But sometimes by putting a lot of effort on that curriculum, other things, sometimes may not get the attention to detail. So I did also remark on the other side of the spectrum that I think the superintendent still needs to work on the relationships with the school committee. Importantly, getting information to us quickly when things happen. We need to know. I've always said there's nothing worse than either reading it in a newspaper, applauding the newspaper for getting the story before we get it, or having somebody call us regarding something that happened in the schools and we didn't know. I've seen there has been improvement there, but I think this year, I just don't know if just too many things have happened that made me really focus again on that topic. And I think, the other thing I mentioned last night, and when we talked about this, and I think it's important to tell everybody else, is that, I need her to have the pulse on the school system. I really feel that she needs to have that pulse. What is happening in our schools from the operation side, other than curriculum? I think curriculum, we're heading the right direction, but there are other things that happen in those buildings, whether it's safety, whether it's security, day-to-day operations, and I think that's a challenge. I think that will be her biggest challenge, to try to balance all these at once. And I think for any one of us it would be, but I think looking at a true assessment of good and what needs to be improved, you have to have some other ideas to talk about. And I think that those are things that I've seen over the last year that I think I would encourage her to kind of take, food for thought and think about as we move forward into the next year, and hopefully that we'll see those things, items be kind of addressed and looked at. So I would just offer that as my committee, as my overall observation that I went through this process, and share that for the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on, any further comments? All right. Mr. Leary.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First, I want to thank the esteemed Personnel Subcommittee Chairman Constance Martin for an outstanding job corralling everybody, 7 very different individuals with different opinions. And I say that in all seriousness. I think a lot of our folks have different opinions on a variety of very important issues. I think this right here, what the school committee really, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, has 5 major objectives. First, obviously, we hire the superintendent. Well, we have a superintendent, so that's one major, probably the most important objective out of the way. The second is the budget, which obviously we're in this year's budget. The third really is setting policy, in which I go into like almost the fourth, is we need to be advocates and kind of promoters of what we're doing successfully and questioners of what we're not doing successfully. And that's an area where obviously every other Wednesday we come here in the public and address those concerns through the superintendent and through other employees and staff. The most important one, I think, after that is the evaluation of the superintendent. And that's why I really, when I say thank you to the subcommittee chair for doing a great job, I really mean it, because this is something where we, under the ed reform, have the most impact in terms of where we're going to go next year, other than the budget. In saying that, I know I've had multiple conversations with the superintendent regarding the way I believe things are, and she's educated me on many areas, not only regarding curriculum, but also from different points of view that I don't normally share. But I appreciate the challenge. I appreciate the debate, if you will, and I also appreciate the good sense of humor, which I did. When I put my report together, I think good sense of humor, which is overrated. Life's way too short. If you don't have it, you're not going to last long. In saying that, I really want to get into what I feel that was positive. I think obviously later during this meeting, you will put forth what's going on with the MCAS scores, which I think are going to be very positive. As I've said in other meetings, when the state provides you over $100 million in monies, and then has a mechanism for seeing if you're achieving success, you need to ensure that you're addressing that. And that is, as much as the MCAS parts of especially the AYP, I don't agree with, it's still the mechanism for which we are held accountable to. So I'm kind of excited to see improvement, and we'll get into that much later. I won't get into it at that point, but that goes to kudos not only to the superintendent, but to the entire staff within the Lowell Public School System. The annual yearly improvement, it's a moving target that most folks, if you asked them on the street, they wouldn't have no clue what it actually means. And the fact that I think 17 or 18 of our schools, as you'll get into later, have actually jumped over years where they didn't meet the improvement and have met it, notice has to be taken of that, positive notice. So in saying that, I appreciate your hard efforts. The areas where I have a difference of opinion and where I've articulated them in the report, the report as Ms. Martin articulated was 1 through 5, 1 being essentially we need to move the superintendent out tomorrow, or if not yesterday, all the way up to 5 where we're going to keep her in stone when she passes away. My opinion came out to be a 3.27, which is a little bit over satisfactory. That's because we had a very challenging year. I think in areas where I found some concerns, in my opinion, whereas Mr. McHugh addressed some of notifying the school committee of issues that we've had in a more timely manner. I won't go into that because Mr. McHugh did that quite nicely. The other area where I discussed was really management and recruiting of folks within our school system. I don't want to get into an area where we're trying to just promote people from within. I think that in and of itself is not what we want. What we want, though, is the feeling or the atmosphere within the school system that I've came in here as a teacher or paraprofessional, and I have an opportunity to go on to a math specialist, a vice principal, ultimately principal, potentially assistant superintendent someday. Or at least I have the skills that I developed within the school system, unfortunately to leave the system to go to a different area, but not with the fact that I feel, whether it's right or if it's wrong, that I feel that I need to. I think the perception is sometimes greater than the actual reality. I know we've looked at the numbers back and forth. I think that's not a bad thing to look at numbers, but I think the perception sometimes is greater than the reality. As I said in the last meeting, the bottom line is the bottom line, however. You have to produce. We've had multiple discussions regarding that. I'm not going to get, I feel that there's some very successful areas where we promoted folks from within. Bob Murphy over at the Robbins Schools is one major example. Liam Skinner over at the Daly School is another major example. And I'm going to start getting into names and I'm going to miss outstanding people. The vast majority of our folks that you have hired are doing an outstanding job. I have, as I pointed out to you, areas where I don't hold that opinion. And I think that's an area where we need to work on and we need to make improvement. The other area regarding that, and I think we had, I'm very optimistic with the conversation we had yesterday. The job of the superintendent is not to sit behind the desk inside a central office. The job of the superintendent, part of the job is to get out and to evaluate 23 plus administrators, principals, and not including the central office. So I feel it's great when you actually are out of the office because you are usually in a Lowell public school. I think that we need to really work with your time. And as I said to you earlier, this is more for public consumption. I think your time really needs to be set in areas where schools are not performing, that you need to be in there more than once or twice a year. You need to be in there perhaps 4 or 5 times a year. And that you need to utilize, and I think you've begun to do that, utilize your 4 assistant superintendents to get out and evaluate schools that are performing in an area where you feel it's appropriate, we all feel is appropriate. And I think you've begun to do that with the alternative schools through Assistant Superintendent Ann Murphy. I know you opened up dialogue with the Assistant Superintendent Gene Franco regarding doing that. I feel that allows you, in this school system, when you have multiple schools, 2,000 employees, over 14,000 students, you have to put your resources in areas where they need to improve. And I think that is imperative that we do that. So I think if you actually begin to do that in immediately or an area where you feel more comfort, I think you're going to have major success. I don't want to oversimplify. I think that is really, curriculum's fantastic. If the folks cannot implement it or they have they need additional assistance to implement it, that's really more important. So I think that's an area that you obviously have the ability to excel at. You have the resources that are in your office to assist you. I would encourage you to get to schools that are really that are in need. Some that I think that are in need, some that obviously you, with your vast more knowledge than I have, know where they're at. You can spend more time and rely upon the schools that are not in need to have your assistant superintendent who has multiple years of experience and skills in doing the same type of work that you do. The other area, and I could speak all night, I guess, but I'll end it like this. The other area I think is equally important and seriously overlooked is setting the agenda. We've had conversations regarding it. We need to set the agenda for the public to tell all the good things that we do. And granted, we have many challenges. We make mistakes. I don't want to have, for our school system, an impression that you make a mistake, we're going to chop your head off. People make mistakes. I think it's important to acknowledge people make mistakes. It's important that they learn from them and they grow from them. But we need to set the agenda and explain, here's what's going on, good and low, and really explain it so everybody, at least everybody understands. And I guess the question we had is, who is our audience? Is it just the parents or grandparents of a school student here? I think obviously that's one of our audience, but I think the whole city is our audience because we're all taxpayers. It's imperative. It's really important that we have successful Lowell public schools. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. As a taxpayer in the city, you want to have successful schools because that directly impacts whether or not your property values go up or down. People move into cities because public schools work well. People leave cities because they aren't working well. So I think in addition to police and fire, this is just as important to that. So I think we need to get out there and really, I guess, fight the good battle, not only on the radio, which I think is good. You're out there taking questions. I mean, you have to do that. It's important. But also address it within the newspaper. And I mean, really get out there in terms of op-ed pieces, et cetera, that you really explain, here's the good stuff that we're doing, here's where we're trying to reach and go forward. And lastly, I'll wrap it up real quick. I think tying in with UMass Lowell and Middlesex and all the other agencies within the city will have a summit on November 7th is a good way to kick off and begin this school year, really go forward in a positive fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Mayor Martin.
Thank you. I just want to make a few brief comments about the evaluation process. I spoke at some length last week at the city council meeting about the evaluation process we went through there, and I do think this is a helpful process for the school committee, for the superintendent, and for the city and the school system. I think it's always good to measure and assess progress or lack of progress, and so I think it's a positive exercise. I'm glad that we do it on an annual basis. I think it tends to refocus people where they may have lost their way, may refocus some of us on some of the things we'd like to see, refocus the public, and certainly refocus the superintendent and her staff. I think overall, I'm certainly, and my rating and evaluation reflects that, certainly satisfied with the performance of the superintendent. I think she is intelligent and gifted. Certainly her expertise in things like curriculum have been spoken about, and I don't want to dwell on things that have already been mentioned, but I think we need to realize that the liaison we have with the Department of Education, I think the folks that run education here in the state have enormous respect for not just the superintendent, but for the Lowell Public Schools. I think oftentimes that gets overlooked. We do have a challenging population to educate here. There are many, many students who come from homes where English is not the language of choice, which impacts all areas of education. I think we're making progress in those areas, and I think the superintendent's provided some leadership to show us how we need to get to where the state wants us to be. So I do think that's important. I know we operate under some very demanding state and federal mandates. I think the superintendent has laid out a course to help us achieve those mandates. Some of those mandates, I think we all have the view that some of them are perhaps unfair, particularly at the federal level, but they're not going away. At least they're not going away anytime soon. And so I'm actually very pleased with the annual yearly progress results that we've had just recently. We have 17 of 23 schools. This is in the K through 8 area, or at least tests at grades 4 and 8. 17 of 23 achieved annual yearly progress in math. 19 of 23 achieved that in English and language arts when you look at the entire performance of the school. So I do think that's an indication that we're moving in the right direction. And I do think that's what the public demands. I mean, the measure, as Committeeman Leary pointed out, you know, the state invests over $100 million a year into our school system here. They demand accountability. Testing is not always the best way, but it's the only way we have right now. And so we need to make progress on these tests every year. I think the recent results we've had show that we're making progress. I think the superintendent deserves a lot of credit for that. Certainly it's not just her work alone. I think the teachers in the classroom certainly are under enormous pressure. I think it gets harder every day to be a teacher in our system, but we're seeing good, solid performance across the district, and I think that speaks well to the future. And I'd just also like to comment briefly on the bonus. We've had some discussion on that. There were, I think, 3 out of the 5 priority goals were achieved. The other 2 were not achieved, but that doesn't mean there wasn't progress in those areas. There was progress, just not enough to measure up to the goal that we set. And, you know, that I think is appropriate. We're talking about a bonus, something for extraordinary performance. Not good performance alone is not enough. You know, we demand a lot, I think, from our teachers. We demand a lot from our students, and we demand a lot from our superintendent. Maybe some of those goals were a little unrealistic, but some of the federal mandates are a little unrealistic too. And so overall, I think we have a very solid school system. I think we have a lot of committed people working in the system. I think that starts at the top, and it certainly works its way down throughout the system. I think everybody should have a lot of pride in what we're doing here. Certainly, it's not perfect. There is always room for improvement, and we've heard some of that through the evaluation process too. I want to thank the superintendent for her commitment and her hard work in the prior years, and I know what her willingness is to see this project through that we're working on here in Lowell. I think it's going to mean a great deal for the city in its future.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, so we take that as a
Accept that as a
report of progress. Okay. Do we need to vote on it?
I need first and
So I'd put that as a motion by Mr.
Okay,
Leary, seconded by Mr. McHugh, to accept the superintendent's performance rating at the 3.59.
Did you do a vote on that, or just
Yeah, just get a roll call vote on it.
so do a roll call?
Yeah.
So do a
Ms.
roll call.
Federica, okay. Ms. Federica.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
7 yeas approved. Accept the report, accept the subcommittee report of progress placed on file. That's the next one.
Okay. So the next,
Just accept the report as a report of progress. That's
so we
it.
accept the report as a report of progress. Next on the agenda is the mayor's task force.
I'm sorry, actually,
all right.
sorry, Mr. Leahy. We do have one final item that
Okay.
happened within the meeting last night, and that was to determine the priority goals for next year so that we can set them now so that both the superintendent and all the members of the committee are very clear about what our expectations are and what our extraordinary expectations are. The committee last night focused in really on 5 areas, again, that we would like the superintendent to focus on. We've given her these areas, and she is going to be bringing back to us specific, quantitative numbers that will make up what means success in each one of these areas. We've been very clear that we want measurable goals, that we want these goals to reflect the reality in our school district today, and for them to be able to be stretch goals that really do, at the conclusion of the year, show something extraordinary, something significant in terms of the superintendent's abilities and achievements over the course of the year. The 5 areas that we have given the superintendent to focus on are, once again, the freshman academy, the areas of promotion, attendance, and reading achievement gains for struggling readers in grades 1 through 8, those who are specifically participating in our targeted intervention program. The third area was mathematics achievement for middle school students, and this is one of the goals which we are already mandating we want to see tied to MCAS scores, MCAS results for next year. The fourth area is the FY09 budget, recognizing I think that we all see that there will be continuing challenges in how we allocate our resources and how we make the most of what we have in terms of resources to keep our district moving forward. And then the final of the 5 priority goals is to expand the role and really to go through, I think, a very introspective process in revamping our Parent Information Center and that parent information function for our district. It's something that I know several members of the committee are extremely concerned about and want to ensure that that is a process that goes through with the school committee participating and really brings us to a place where our Parent Information Center is providing not only good customer service, but truly a much broader scope of service for the families that we work with day in and day out. So those were the 5 areas. The superintendent will be returning to us with the quantifiable numbers that we will be using to judge success. And a year from now, when we're here discussing the awarding of a bonus, this is what will be driving that process. Once again, an instrument that allows us to offer structure to a somewhat subjective process. So I thank all of my my colleagues for participating in the evaluation process this year. I think as my colleague Mr. McHugh and I know our mayor had mentioned, I think it's crucially important that we do take time out to look at big picture issues, to look at performance in a greater scope, encompassing the full district. And I think that this, it was really quite satisfying to have all of our members involved and participating and really paying attention to this process. So I thank all of my colleagues for their participation. I would believe the superintendent might want to respond to some of the.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Just a couple of comments. I want to thank the committee for taking the time to look closely at my work, and I appreciate the constructive criticism and suggestions. I appreciate the commendations as well, and I want to any successes that that we've had are a tribute to the hard work of the staff. I have an extraordinary team that supports me on a day-to-day basis. Starting with the people in at these tables, and I very much appreciate the school committee's commitment and hard work on behalf of the young people of the city. I relish this challenge. This is a job worth doing and worth doing well. I can continue to consider it a privilege and an honor to be superintendent of schools in the city of Lowell, and look forward to rising to the challenge that you've laid out for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
I would submit that as a report of progress.
Yeah, okay, accept the report as report of progress placed on file. Okay.
Okay.
First and a second, okay?
First
I
and
need a first and a second.
All right, so we had a first, Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the Mayor's Task Force on desegregation, reporting on September 19th. Mayor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. We did meet earlier this evening to discuss a couple of things related to the desegregation consent decree. I think what prompted the scheduling of the meeting was, number one, the Supreme Court decision from earlier this year and how that may impact what we do here in the city. The second item was a motion that came up at the last meeting concerning the waiting list, which we did not reach in the meeting. Briefly, we had former Superintendent Sapasaris attend the meeting, and I want to thank him and acknowledge his presence there. I believe most, if not all, the other members of the committee were present as well. And what Superintendent Sapasaris did was took us through how we ended up where we are today with the current school assignment plan that we have. We didn't have much room for any discussion beyond that, except to note that under the desegregation order we operate under now, the State Department of Education was a party in that, the original litigation. They are any changes would have to be approved then through the state as well as by this committee. And the state is in the process of digesting and evaluating the Supreme Court decision. They have not issued any guidance for us and probably would not be prepared to take any action on any amendment we may wish to impose. In any event, all that's very premature at this point. We did agree to meet again to discuss this issue, certainly within the next 30 days. But it is an issue that we think needs to be addressed. Even if it results in modest change or no change, it's certainly something I think we owe to the residents to certainly consider the most current areas of the law as we go forward. So we will be meeting again shortly. It certainly wouldn't impact assignments for this year if in fact changes do come about, but it is something that's going to be actively discussed throughout the fall and report at a later date when conclusions are reached.
Thank you. Any other comments? Except
All report as a report of progress.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Second, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Okay.
All right. Next, we have the reports from the superintendent.
Thank you. There are several reports on tonight's agenda. The first one has to do with progress on the 2006-2007, last year's district goals. The school committee adopted 17 goals last year, and you have a report from me on the progress in achieving those goals. So of the 17 goals, 10 were achieved or likely achieved based on the information we have now. One was exceeded. 2 will not yet be known until we have the MCAS results in early October. 1 was deferred, and 3 were not met. And so you have the detail on those. I just want to highlight a couple of them. We had an ambitious goal related to our English language learners, our youngsters who are limited English proficient. And while we did not meet that goal, we made some substantial progress. Committee members know that we assess youngsters who are learning the English language, whose first language is not English. We assess them, and I place them in several categories. Brand new beginners. Then there's an early intermediate stage, an intermediate stage, and then they move into the longest stage called transitioning, which is the longest period of time when a youngster's moved, and it's the longest period because that's when they're really developing the academic language. And 2/3 of our students are in the transitioning stage. That's the longest stage they'll be in. And of those, 45% of those that were identified in transitioning last year either moved completely out of limited English proficient status altogether, or they were judged probable for transition. And so I think that speaks to the really good work of teachers who are really developing across the system higher and higher levels of skill and knowledge in learning how in mainstream classrooms to meet the needs of youngsters who are in that transitioning stage of English language development. I won't go through all of them, but I think the committee knows that the goals cut across all areas of the system. Some issues related to safety, some issues related to mathematics, high school, English language learners, just a wide range. Some of the improvements we're making in our data system so that we can make more effective use of information to make smart decisions at the classroom level, at the school level, at the superintendent's level, at the school committee level. So there are goals cutting across middle schools, elementary schools, central office, and I think that overall it's exciting to again for the committee to identify 17 ambitious, challenging goals and to make such substantial progress on the vast majority of them. Welcome any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments on this report? Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next, Madam Superintendent, on MCAS and adequate yearly progress?
Yes, you have a report and a supplemental page having to do with the school district's achievement of adequate yearly progress. And I also, this evening, put on your tables a couple of, in color, some slides. Mr. Leary and I think Ms. Doherty were able to schedules allowed them to attend the citywide parent council meeting on Monday evening, and these slides are taken from that presentation, and I think that they probably tell the story quite well of our progress in achieving the federal mandate of adequate yearly progress. So the first one from that presentation just tries to set the context that there is one national report card, if you will, on youngsters' reading, writing, and mathematics knowledge, and that's called the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and a sampling of students take that test across the country. And Massachusetts, in the most recent administration of that test, is ranked first in grades 4 and 8 in reading, and ranked first in grades 4 and 8 in mathematics. So Massachusetts gets looked at nationally as really the most successful public school system, and that's the context in which adequate yearly progress needs to be looked at. So the second slide shows two lines, and they go across from 2000 to 2014, and this is how the federal government, under the No Child Left Behind law, established targets for every school district. Massachusetts already had a state test of proficiency in English, reading, and mathematics before the federal law was passed. So once the federal law was passed, we had to take that law and it became the requirement. The state had already, before the No Child Left Behind law was passed, had identified the MCAS test system as the test system Massachusetts was using, and had already identified a score of proficiency. They'd already determined that proficient, the definition of proficient in mathematics in Massachusetts, meant that you scored a 240 on the MCAS test. On a test that has the lowest score of 200, that is, you fill in nothing on the test, you get a 200, and the highest score is a 280. So on the MCAS, back in 2000, the state established 240 as the proficiency. But the state said a score of 220 was sufficient to graduate from high school. So the passing score for MCAS for graduation is 220, but proficient was always determined to be a much higher number than that at 240. Because the state had already made that determination in 2000, when the No Child Left Behind law was passed, Massachusetts identified how many youngsters, what percent of the youngsters in Massachusetts had scored a 240 on the 2000 MCAS test. And if the line that's the red line on this chart indicated that statewide the composite score had been just over 50 in 2000. So under the federal law, the state had to put a dot there and then go out to the year 2014 when the federal law mandates, I'm not sure how you mandate this, but sets as a mandate that every single youngster would be proficient in mathematics, 100% proficiency, drew a line up to 100% proficiency, and that straight line through each of the subsequent years from 2000 to 2014 is the annual target that the state has to reach for mathematics. That's the red line. The other line is the target for reading, because back in 2000, Massachusetts youngsters were doing better at reading than in mathematics. The same process was used by the state then for every district and every school. So whatever scores people had gotten in 2000, that was your starting point, and a straight line gets drawn to 100%, and that establishes the targets. So you can see the target gets higher each year. And then the federal law gives labels. In good standing means you've met your adequate yearly progress. In need of improvement, you didn't meet it for 1 or 2 years. If you're a school in need of corrective action, you haven't haven't met it for the 3 or 4, and then restructuring, a school in need of restructuring hasn't met it for 5 or more years. So those are the labels that schools get. And Lowell has most of its schools labeled. And you have a chart showing where most of the schools labeled. So the next slide shows you where our schools are labeled. So if you look at the math in the aggregate, meaning all kids in the school, we have 3 schools in good standing, 5 in the first year of improvement, and so on through. In the subgroups, because the federal law also looks, every subgroup has to achieve 100%, and you look at it differently, and there's a different line for every subgroup. We have several schools that have made it in the aggregate every year, but not in the subgroups. The school on this slide that's under R2, it's the second year in restructuring for mathematics, is the Sullivan Middle School. So that's the school that the state also had identified several years ago as underperforming in mathematics. If you turn to the next page, it tells the same story of the labels that the federal law has given for English language arts. And you probably, and I think committee members know this, but under good standing for the aggregate, one of those 3 schools there is the Sullivan Middle School. So the Sullivan Middle School was identified as needing restructuring for mathematics, but was one of 3 of our schools that was in good standing for English language arts. We've just gotten the results for whether or not we make adequate yearly progress based on the spring 2007 MCAS tests. And the next slide you have indicates how many of the schools achieved adequate yearly progress. So that's a rising target, and you can see all but 6 total of our schools made it in mathematics. So 17 of our 23 schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high school, made it for the last year. The labels don't get removed until you make it 2 years in a row. So our big challenge is to make another big leap this year. And when we do that, then the schools that have yes on them will get out of being labeled. And they will be clearly on their way to achieving ever higher achievement. The next slide shows the same thing for English language arts, and all but 4 of our schools. So that means 19 of our 23 schools made adequate yearly progress in English language arts. And what is also very encouraging is that in mathematics, 9 of the 17 schools that made adequate yearly progress, called AYP, in math, 9 of them made it for every single subgroup. So that's youngsters in special education, that's youngsters who are limited English proficient, youngsters who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Every conceivable subgroup that the federal government identifies made it, and that included the Sullivan Middle School. So a really quite extraordinary accomplishment because that was a large leap they needed to make to get back on track of adequate yearly progress. And 12 of our 23 schools have made AYP for all subgroups in reading as well this year. So it's really a very, very big jump. In terms of school labels, statewide, 50% of the schools labeled in need of corrective action or need of improvement made AYP in 2007. Here in Lowell, 80% of our schools made it. So I believe when we see the final results of MCAS, we're going to see that the gap between Lowell's performance and the state average is we're starting to close that gap. It won't be closed yet. Our goal is to close it as rapidly as we can, and I think again this is a testimony to the incredibly hard work of our staff. The district itself, the The last slide you have shows statewide, there are 10 districts in corrective action status for the aggregate performance in math or English language arts reading. And there are 26 districts that are in corrective action status for subgroups, subgroup performance only. Lowell is not one of the 10. We are one of the 26. So that we have not made adequate yearly progress for 2 years in a row in those for certain subgroups. We made it in the aggregate this year, and we're hopeful that again, that the really strong work that's going on in classrooms every day in mathematics and in English reading, but also in all the other classes, because our science teachers contribute to our youngsters being able to read well and reason well, and our focus has never been on raising the MCAS scores. That's not our goal. We don't say to teachers, raise the MCAS scores. Our goal has been to support teachers to develop avid readers, like the ones you saw earlier this evening, who really discover the joy of reading, and to develop skills as readers, interest in reading, develop curiosity about mathematics, skill in mathematics, and to develop a real understanding of the power of writing, and that if we do that well, MCAS scores will rise. But our goal itself is not MCAS. But I must say, it's very nice after all the hard work that teachers have been putting into developing new and even better approaches to reading and mathematics instruction, that it is showing up that has shown up in MCAS results for the 2000. So I'd welcome any questions.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Through you to the superintendent. I just have a quick question. I don't know if you've got this off the top of your head, but I read something the other day, and I'm not sure if I have the statistic correct, that said statewide, 68% of our schools are in some sort of needs of improvement categories. And the whole thinking behind it is, as we get closer to that year, 2014, we're going to find more and more schools are not going to be able to make the adequate yearly progress because this 100% goal, I mean, schools like Acton, very wealthy communities, and I'm just wondering if you are familiar with what the statistic is. What is the percentage of schools across the state that are in some sort of needs of improvement category? Do you know that?
The number that I've last seen is that approximately 25% of all suburban and rural schools in the Commonwealth have one of those labels for subgroups or for the aggregate. About 25% have not made AYP for the 2 years or more, and about 75% of all urban schools have a label through the federal guidelines. And I just haven't recently seen the figure of what that adds together for statewide.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Leary?
Madam Superintendent, I just want to say you guys have done a very good job, obviously. This past year, this is incredible improvement. And I want to basically congratulate you and your staff and all the teachers in the city for doing an excellent job. I mean, it's not easy. And I think highlighting here at Massachusetts, the first slide you showed on Monday, the most difficult test in the country, and the state that's the best is the one we're sitting in. So that's good. I mean that's fantastic. When you compare other states, what they're trying to achieve, it's I'll pick on someone like Mississippi, where their state tests, they show great improvement within their own state, but when they compare those tests, their state's test results to the No Child Left Behind standard, they're woefully inadequate. And quite frankly, it looks at the test as almost geared up to just show great numbers. Where in our state, we're leading the pack. And obviously that makes it challenging for our folks to continue competing with. So I just went through a whole thing with your review, slamming you. But I think right now, this part right here has to be acknowledged, and your staff has to be acknowledged for doing a great job last year, and your teachers have to be acknowledged for a job well done. Thank you.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes, briefly, if I could just ask a question of the superintendent. So we used the Sullivan as an example. So they made AYP this year. So next year, if they make the AYP, then they'd be off.
Right, they go from the right side of that list over to good standing, where they already are for English language
So
arts.
they go all the way back over. They don't just progress
That's right.
backwards. So they go actually. So that's a good point. And I see the challenge. I too would applaud yourself as well as the teachers. I mean, they're the ones on the front lines day to day working with these students. And like I said during your evaluation, I think the 7 years that this committee has been working on with you on making these changes, as now we're starting to see this.
Right.
And this is the results that we wanted to see, that we're moving in the right direction. And I think that last chart where you say, 80% compared to 50% of the state, now we're starting to see a gap where Lowell is showing the improvement that we've always wanted to see. So I think we're really getting there. The last thing, I know you made a statement about how the graph has been developed. Now, is that true for all states around the country, or do others have a parabolic curve that kind of make them look good short term, but the long term they're not? Because I know Massachusetts took the straight line approach, and
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure if you
Yeah,
talked about that at dinner, so I think people at home need to understand, because when you hear
Yeah.
people comparing Massachusetts to other states, they say we're not doing as well, yet your first slide says absolutely we are. So I just want to kind of talk about that. If you
yes,
could.
I mean, the Massachusetts MCAS test system, which is not perfect. I don't want to sit here saying it's perfect by any means, but it is, among other things, first of all, it tests writing, and most of the state systems don't involve writing; they involve multiple choice tests. So so first of all, ours demands writing. Ours is. It is generally recognized as among the most challenging, of the top 5 most challenging tests, and the standard is seen as somewhere among the top 3. When independent groups have looked at all of the state by state, all of their testing systems and their standards, Massachusetts is in the top 3 or 5 on the difficulty of the test, the comprehensiveness of the test, and the high standard, the high passing score that's identified as proficient. In Massachusetts also, as you point out, I'm not sure why I'm not sure why this was done, but Massachusetts did decide to take the straight line approach from here's where we were in 2000, straight line up to 100%. There are a number of states that got approval from the federal government to have a kind of low line and then go up steeply at the end. So if there are no changes in No Child Left Behind, there'll be a sudden rush of labels toward 2014 in those states. Whereas in Massachusetts, we had a large number from the beginning have had a pretty large number because it's a straight line up. And improvement doesn't happen in a straight line. You make some big improvement for a while, and then you kind of plateau as you figure out what are the next things you have to do to get the next improvement. And while we're very encouraged that the increase making AYP as a district and in so many of our schools this time, we love that. We think it's a symptom of the cumulative impact of the hard work over many, many years here in Lowell. We hope it's not. We hope it's a trend, but that target gets more challenging every year. It doesn't stay the same. It gets more challenging. So it's another huge leap that we will have to make. And so it just means that, I'm a believer in persistence and perseverance. We know what it's going to take. We're doing it despite fewer resources. We know what it takes. We're going to stick with it, and we're going to get as close as we can to that impossible goal of 100%. But we're going to really work hard we're going to work really hard at having our kids love reading and be good readers and love writing and be good at it and really be curious about mathematics. That's what we're shooting for. And then the MCAS will take care of itself.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was an important fact that, we need the public to hear as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. It's a good report. I appreciate what you said here. But I also want to make a comment that today I happened to be by the Sullivan School, since we mentioned the Sullivan School, and I had a good talk with Assistant Principal Deidre Haley, and you can tell when you talk to people in the school. I mean, they're exciting. They're excited. Their grades are going up. You can see the excitement, and you can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their face, and you can see it at that school. So I congratulate them and all the other schools, but especially because I was there today, had that conversation. You know, they're excited. Things are going well there, and it shows, and it goes to the kids. It goes to the students. So everybody's to be commended on that. Thank you.
If I could.
Madam Superintendent?
If I could just comment, we have just received the report from the Department of Education about review of the Sullivan School for 2 years. It's a very detailed report, and it was actually prepared before they knew the MCAS, before the state knew the MCAS results or whether they were going to make AYP. And we've just received it, so I'll be sharing it with the committee, and we can put it on a future agenda. But when you look at it, you really see all that's involved in doing this work. It is really complex work, and the Sullivan School got incredible commendation from the state for what it has done over the last several years to really grab hold of this issue of how do we turn kids on to math, how do we get kids skillful and knowledgeable about mathematics, and what do we have to do differently that we may never have tried before that's going to make a big difference. And the commendations are wonderful. And so we got that over to the Sullivan School very quickly, and they're sharing pieces of it with the staff, and I think you probably saw some of that excitement that came from those the great commendations from the state.
Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next report from the superintendent concerning teacher recruitment and retention.
Yes, as the report indicates, on Monday, August 27th, which was the first official day of school for teachers here in Lowell, we reached 2 milestones. The first is that all but a single one of our 1,170 teaching positions was actually filled, and all but 20 of those positions had been filled by August 1st. A second milestone, and that meant that every child who arrived at school the next day was being welcomed by a teacher who was prepared to start class from day one. And then the second milestone was all but 18 of those nearly 1,200 teaching positions, over 98%, have been filled by licensed teachers, meaning all of whom have been hired since 2000. They've passed the Massachusetts Toughest in the Nation test of reading, writing, and the subject matter that the teacher has been assigned to teach. So that meant that nearly every child who arrived was being taught by a teacher who can communicate effectively and knows his or her subject matter content well. We have a district-based licensure program that immediately picks up those 18 who are not yet fully have their preliminary licensure, and we will work with them so that as rapidly as possible they will secure licensure. But I thought the committee would want to see in sort of bulleted form some of what has gone into that accomplishment. It's not the accomplishment of one person, although Assistant Superintendent Susan Mulligan should take a lot of credit for orchestrating the actual process. I've tried to list 15 steps, a couple of which preceded me, that were important as laying the foundation for this, that have contributed to this ability for us to do what most urban systems can't do. And I think committee members know there was an editorial in the New York Times talking about how urban schools haven't been able to fill positions, and there was a local editorial about needing to pay bonuses to recruiting bonuses for people, et cetera. And I just think it's important for the committee to know and to take credit, because a number of these things are key things that the school committee has done over the last 7 years that have contributed to our accomplishing this. For example, the McCarty bill, which applies only to a couple of urban systems, really had created over the years a real bottleneck in being able to hire people. And the school committee pressed us to work with the delegation or to find an alternative to the McCarty bill, and Assistant Superintendent Mulligan was able to figure out a way to use the new state teacher testing system to meet most of the McCarty law requirements for our teachers. And so we were able to get around that bottleneck by making really effective use of the state teacher exams. The school committee, back in 2002, began a process through negotiations with the teachers union, with the UTL, which was a very, I think, cooperative partnership in which both the school committee and the teachers union saw a common problem of how do we get enough teachers on board the start of school, and looked and saw that that compendium process of only having one time a year when positions got declared vacant, that May 1st compendium date, that was getting in the way. And so we developed, through the negotiation process, the whole concept of a rolling compendium, a May 1st compendium listing openings, a June 1st, and right now through the summer. I think it's been modified 3 different times in negotiations to fine-tune that system so that teacher rights and interests have been protected at the same time as important changes were able to be made so that we could be in the hiring business and hiring for permanent positions all the way through to August 15th. And and there are several others in here that the committee has played a key role in, but I thought the committee would want to see at least 15 different steps that have been involved in achieving what I think is a milestone for an urban school system. And a lot of people have played an incredibly important role in it. I welcome any questions or comments.
Further discussion, Ms. Martin?
I really would just like to say that, I mean, this is obviously an issue that we've talked a great deal about over the course of the last few years in terms of, I think, being one of the districts that saw the problem coming. We weren't alone in that, but I can remember, 7 years ago, having the conversations about how our district particularly was going to be hit by a significant number of retirements that were going to be happening, how the challenges for filling our positions with licensed teachers who had gone through the entire process through DOE, how challenging that was going to be. And I think we, again, saw this coming, and these 15 steps, which I know really are only the beginning of really the full complement of actions that we took in anticipation of this, really has borne fruit when we can look at a year where we can begin our school year with our teachers in the classrooms, ready to teach. There is no downtime. There is no uncertainty or shifting sands for our students to be facing as they started their school year this year. And I think that has an extraordinary impact on our ability to start our school year very smoothly, to begin the real important work that needs to be done can start absolutely immediately. And by eliminating some of that downtime, I think, again, these are the things that contribute overall to our ongoing success. And this is really an example of how being prepared, of how recognizing a problem was coming, and really creating some innovative solutions has paid off absolutely for our district and placed us in a very strong position for this year, certainly, but I think also as we move forward, that we've solved some problems this year, that those solutions are going to continue to be extremely helpful and effective over the course of these next, literally 10 to 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Motion to accept the report as report of progress by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next report on the Lowell Teacher Academy.
Yes, one of the 15 items identified as enabling us to get to that milestone, it was the development of the Lowell Teacher Academy, another collaboration, I think, effective collaboration between the school committee and the United Teachers of Lowell, the development of what I think is becoming in the state a model induction program. That is a program for the first, when a person arrives new to Lowell as a teacher, they are enrolled in a 3-year induction program where they have the support of a mentor who is trained and supported to do the mentoring, They participate in graduate level coursework designed, customized specifically for Lowell, taught by Lowell administrators and members of the faculty, and they also participate in study groups. So that we're trying to guarantee, come as close as we can to guaranteeing their success, and provide the kind of support that all teachers need when they're new to a system, but certainly teachers who are coming to an urban setting where they're dealing with perhaps youngsters they haven't dealt with before in terms of English language learners, some of the kinds of other challenges that youngsters bring. The loss of teachers in urban districts, loss of beginning teachers, is huge. Nationally, about 50% of teachers that teach in urban areas are gone within 5 years. Just gone. We can't afford that. We can't afford that kind of turnover. We need to help people feel supported and be successful. And in the goals, you saw that we had set some goals for retention for teachers in their first year and teachers in their second year, and we actually exceeded those goals of 85% and 90% retention rates, which is really very extraordinary. At this point, 29% of our teachers are participating in some way in the Teacher Academy, either as a teacher in their first, second, or third year, or as a mentor, or as a teacher of courses in the Teacher Academy. We've also successfully, again, we've been able to collaborate with the Teachers Union, and we've been able to successfully link that with the Lowell program, which is an on-site, low or no-cost master's degree program. So that what we've been able to do is, again, it's customized to urban teaching. It's an opportunity for our teachers to earn a master's degree here on site with coursework that's directly relevant to the work here in Lowell. And it is a recruiting device we're using as well. The availability, there's virtually no system in Massachusetts that affords the opportunity for teachers on site to earn a master's degree in highly relevant coursework, and we're able to do it, and so we're able to have that as part of our recruitment strategy when we're looking to recruit people to come here instead of to neighboring communities, or to come here instead of another urban system. And we're finding that it is turning out to be very attractive to teachers that we're recruiting, and also to teachers who are already here. And it's going to help us retain teachers because they can have that typically, if you can hold on to a teacher for 6 or more years, for the most part, they'll be with you. So that this is a way to help people be successful and stay with us. I'm very excited about the work that our staff has done in developing the Lowell Teacher Academy, and this is one where committee members know we secured a private grant for $1.6 million for 3 years to really get this launched, but I think it's really proving its value to us. So I'd welcome any questions.
Any questions or comments on this report? Motion to accept as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next item, Madam Superintendent, the Citywide Parent Council.
Yes, I mentioned a little earlier this evening that the Citywide Parent Council sponsored the annual State of the Schools presentation, and you have a copy of the PowerPoint slides that I used in that presentation. It's going to be broadcast over Channel 22 a variety of times over the next couple of weeks. So, in case committee members were at questions. Yes.
Any discussion on this report? Motion to accept by
Move approval.
Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next report is on the Alternative Diploma Program.
Yes, you have a report prepared by Assistant Superintendent Murphy outlining all the steps since the last status report on the progress in implementing the collaboration between our adult education program, Lowell High School, and UTEC to establish an adult diploma program. So her report identifies 10 steps that have been taken, I think very responsive to the very good questions and suggestions and requirements that the school committee identified to ensure that this program is challenging and rigorous and really well-designed. So you can see that a great deal of work has gone into completing the curriculum, developing the academic and discipline review process, the 3-tier review process for evaluating demonstrated coursework, and to determine the competency for course credit. An oversight committee is fully functioning. It is headed up by Assistant Superintendent Murphy. It has Fred Appice, the director of the Lowell Adult Education Program, Bob McCarthy, housemaster at the high school, Greg Cruteau from the director of UTEC, Dirk Needler, and then Sue Smith and Steve Coleman from the Lowell Public Schools. So it's a representative of the 3 agencies that are collaborating, the three organizations that are collaborating on this, and then there's more information in the report. Welcome questions or comments.
Any discussion on this report? A motion to accept by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Fattacante. All those in favor of accepting the report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the report is accepted. Next on postgraduate plans of Lowell High School graduates.
The motion from Mr. Leahy at a much earlier meeting had requested a report on the adequacy of the preparation provided for students to succeed in college and/or work, including a report on the schools our graduates are attending and their graduation rate. This is the first part of the response to that report, giving you acceptance information going back to June 2000.
Any questions or comments on this?
Move approval?
Motion approved by Ms. Fattacante, second by Mr. Leahy. Madam Superintendent, there's really nothing in here about graduation rates. I understand that's difficult data to obtain, but I think we need to try to get as best we can.
Yes, there are two initiatives going on. One, the high school itself has subscribed to a program called Student Tracker, which attempts to track students once they're graduated from Lowell High School and they've admitted to a college or university, to track their progress as a way to do this. It's very complicated because there's now data for the public institutions in Massachusetts. So there is a way to track that now, and the state is working on that and being able to give back information to high schools about how their graduates have done at UMass Lowell, or at Middlesex Community College, or at Fitchburg State. So that the state has now tied the higher ed data system to the high school system. But the state system is not tied to the private colleges or universities in the state, nor to any colleges or universities outside of Massachusetts. The state is, the Department of Education is beginning to look at a way to fix that problem, and I'm cautiously optimistic that there'll be some serious talk next spring about a statewide system that will enable us from Lowell High School to be able to basically track our students through almost any college or university around the country. That at least there'll be the opportunity to begin that process, I'm hopeful, by next summer. But that really depends on a Department of Education study. But they're actively interested in precisely this question. It is one, everyone knows there's a really high attrition rate in higher education. And some of it is financial, some of it is preparation of youngsters, and it's a wide range, and we really need that data to know how to do our work better. We really need that information. No high school has very good information on it. We want to be a leader in having good information to make those decisions.
Thank you. Any further discussion, motion? All those in favor of the motion to accept the report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the report is accepted. Next report concerning the Lowell Public School UMass Lowell partnership.
Yes, this is a report that's prepared as part of the annual funding requirements for the New Horizons program at the high school, which is a long-standing high school UMass Lowell partnership that is designed to provide academic support services to increase the college attendance rates of graduating seniors who are economically disadvantaged and first-generation minority students. And I thought that the committee would want to see the kind of work that goes on to support youngsters to develop the aspiration for higher education, and then to develop the knowledge about how to navigate that system to get into a college. And so I think it's a very good report. It offers some constructive suggestions to the high school for how to make the program that much more successful by integrating it more into the ongoing work. And I'm hopeful that this longstanding partnership will be one of the examples that at the summit that the committee has directed me to work on, on November 9th, that will involve the Chancellor Meehan, President Cowan from Middlesex Community College, myself, members of the school committee, members of the delegation, and a variety of people that we will work toward developing ways that we can identify what are the essential characteristics of our strongest partnerships, and what's the next generation of partnership that we need to. What's the next level that we can take our partnership work to?
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Any discussion on this report? Motion to accept by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor of accepting the report say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next report on dental program.
Yes, last year the school committee authorized the pilot project, the Oral Health Impact Project, designed to give access to our children who have had inadequate access to dental care. This is a report on the first stage of it last year. Great success that we've experienced, and the opportunity now to expand it. So we're very excited about it. We think dental disease and untreated dental issues are a real hidden problem particularly for poor children, who often experience days and days and days of chronic pain. That really does impact their ability to learn in schools. And this is a real proactive way that we've been able to partner with the Tufts Community Dental Program and others to bring dental care, to make it much more accessible for our children. So welcome questions or comments.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Martin.
Just a quick question. So in terms of the total number of students who we anticipate would be participating, do we have just a ballpark?
I'm going to ask Assistant Superintendent Murphy.
What we're doing is we're now going to offer the services in all of our schools, and it will depend on parent permissions, how many parents want to access the services. But last year, for a short window of 4 weeks, 373 of our students actually access the services. So we're hopeful that parents will want to have their children participate in this.
Excellent. Could I just ask that we get a report at the conclusion of the school year so that we'll be able to track the success? That'd be wonderful.
We'll have the demographics for you by school, how many students participated in working directly with the dentist, also how many students participated in the new educational piece that we're adding through Tufts Dental.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments on this report? Motion to accept by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor of accepting the report say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. The next item is the football coach. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, I'm just reporting as a follow-up to last spring's football coach hiring, when various rumors spread about reports of negative letters and calls made to one of the finalist candidates. Athletic Director Brian Martin has confirmed that one of the finalists, Mr. Murphy, had met recently with Lowell High School football coach Al Pear, and information had become available to Mr. Murphy regarding negative letters and calls that he had received during the selection process. And Mr. Murphy had reported to Coach Pear that it was Mr. Murphy's conclusion that Coach Pear and his supporters had nothing to do with any of the letters or calls, and that both coaches agreed that they wanted to just move on and focus on their positions as head coaches at their respective high schools.
Thank you. Ms. Fataconte.
Thank you, Your Honor. I asked that the superintendent put this on the agenda because I thought it was important. I thought it was important because it spoke to the character of an employee of the Lowell school system. I had an opportunity to speak to Coach Pear during the week. He did, in fact, have a very good meeting with Coach Murphy. They agreed that they would put this behind them, and they agreed that they would both work to the betterment of the Lowell Public Schools and the Dracut Public Schools. I thought it was important for our community to be completely aware that at no time was anyone who was a Mr. Pear or Coach Pear supporter sending any negative letters or threats to any candidates for this position. And I just couldn't understand why we didn't have it on the agenda since we had been apprised of the information about a month ago. I just thought it was important that I think that we as a community, the football program needs to move forward, and this information, I thought, was extremely important in helping us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fataconte. Any further discussion or questions on this item? Mr. Leary.
I agree with my colleague, absolutely, but I also it also leads to the character of Mr. Murphy for actually bringing it to the attention. Obviously, he didn't have to do anything, and I think we should give kudos to him and a thanks to him. This is obviously shows good sportsmanship on the Dracut football coach as well as I know, Mr. Pear as well. Thank you.
If we can just keep them from filming defensive coach signals, we'll be all set.
Whatever needs to happen, happens, okay? And the Lowell High, Dracut High football game is November 2nd.
Okay.
Just in case anybody's wondering.
Motion to accept the report by Ms. Fataconte, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. That concludes the superintendent reports. There are 2 items under new business. First, concerning the feasibility of broadcasting subcommittee meetings. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, you have a report. We have a report outlining the feasibility of broadcasting subcommittee meetings. You have a preliminary, very preliminary look at the feasibility and a proposal for how to respond to the desire of the school committee to have subcommittee meetings, or at least the Lowell High School subcommittee meetings, broadcast. The information that you have raises several issues that will need to be addressed. One has to do with the need for advance notice and schedule of meetings. If students are going to be involved in taping them, there need to be plenty of notice. The desirability of holding meetings to be broadcast at the Channel 22 studio, because all the equipment is there, but also so that students not only can have easy access to the equipment, but at the same time they can develop their skills, the skills involved in camera operation, directing a live program, and so on, so that it is a learning opportunity for the students and they develop their skills. That's a second reason for holding the meeting at the studio. A third consideration is the need to set a reasonable end time for meetings. 9:30 is the time that the high school staff think would be appropriate to be respectful of the students' academic commitments. And then another is to identify the anticipated cost and a budget source. What I would recommend to the committee is that the committee authorize a pilot involving the next meeting of the Lowell High School Subcommittee, so that we hold that at the studio, at the high school, schedule it at ample time so that it could be there could be appropriate students and staff involved. And then at that meeting, include on the agenda the discussion of the potential benefits and pitfalls, so that a smart plan can be developed for the course of the rest of the year. So sort of the idea of starting small and proceeding.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I'd just like to comment, I think this is long overdue to try to do more with our studio equipment that we have there and get more students involved in the Communications Academy. I remember back, maybe it was a year or so ago, when the athletics subcommittee talked about being able to have our students come out and film some of our sporting events. And, I mean, my long-range goal would be to develop this program into something like that, that would have, you know, various opportunities throughout our schools that we could be broadcasting more. And so I wholeheartedly support this recommendation. I know we've been in discussion about our next high school subcommittee meeting. We could certainly schedule it. I don't think my colleagues would have an issue with meeting at the studio. Sorry.
The studio's calling.
So, I think it's just so late that I'm not here.
Memo did say, advance notice.
Yes, all those, we could meet all those parameters. I mean, I admit, the high school subcommittee is one that tends to run long, so we would have to make sure we kept the agenda short. But I think this is absolutely the time to do this. I would welcome the support of my colleagues. I'd love to move forward on this initiative. Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
I would certainly support the motion. I just have to say, I think it's rather mean to ask high school students to sit through a high school subcommittee. And I don't know if that counts against attention or something like that, because that's going to be a tough gig.
Right. So, there's a motion to adopt the idea for a pilot program by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The reported and recommendation are adopted. Next item under new business is a draft letter to the Lowell Planning Board, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, you have a draft letter to the Lowell Planning Board that Assistant Superintendent Lang and I prepared in order to correct some misstatements that were made to the city's planning board concerning a proposed development on Rock Street. This is the developer that has sought to build 12 units of permanent affordable housing with on-site management on Rock Street. The school committee's facilities subcommittee discussed the issue in February of 2006, and the committee at that time took no action in favor or opposed because it was informed that the developer had withdrawn the application. So you have also attached the memo from that time to the committee outlining the proposal, so you have details about the proposal. The planning board last week approved the project, and the planning board acted after the developer secured an injunction through Lowell Superior Court that prohibited the planning board from considering any intended use of the property, and that permitted the board to consider only features of the site plan, for example, adequacy of parking, setbacks, etc. And the proposed use is consistent with the current zoning for that area. So the planning board approved it, but there were comments made at that hearing that erroneously stated that the school committee had supported it, that the superintendent had supported it, and in fact, the school committee had taken no action. As superintendent, I had not had any discussion about that with others, and so this is a letter that attempts to at least correct the record for the planning board. So I'd welcome direction from the committee.
Ms. Faracanti?
Thank you, Your Honor. February of 2006, I don't remember how I became aware of this, but I did. Brought it before this committee. This committee thought it was important enough to send to the Facilities Committee for a subcommittee meeting. At that time, apparently Bridgewell withdrew their plans, so there was no action taken by the school committee because there was no action to take. Subsequently, Bridgewell put in another request to establish the 12-unit program on Rock Street. And the school committee at that time got no notice. Neither did the superintendent get any notice. And we are in a butter, Your Honor. We have a school with several hundred children that walk to that school every day. So I would consider us in a butter. There are two issues to the letter that I think are extremely important. One, if you turn to the draft letter that the superintendent has written, the quoted section, it says, and this is by attorney Samuel Vitale. He represents Middlesex North Resource, which is the parent company of Bridgewell, who is putting up the 12-unit facility. It says, Police Chief, the people that you look to as the guardians of public safety, none of them raised any objection, appeared in objection, and in fact are not in objection, nor did the people who govern your schools, the school committee, the superintendent of schools, or the school principal at the nearby school. That's a false statement. That is in fact a lie. The school committee was never asked. We were never alerted to the fact that the planning board was going to address this. When I spoke to Ann Barton, I could not believe that we were not notified as an abutter. Now I recognize full well, Your Honor, that the city approves this project. And in fact, they want the Middlesex Street area to clean up and move to a less visible part of town. But, Your Honor, the 7 of us sit here, and we have to consider some of our most fragile youngsters. And some of those youngsters go to that school. Now, just because they come from a lower socioeconomic background, some of them, doesn't mean that we are not guardians of what happens to them. So to have not been notified at all is a disregard to this body. For this attorney, Attorney Vitale, to make this falsehood, it's abhorrent to me, Your Honor, that he uttered that statement knowing full well this body, nor did the superintendent have any notice of that meeting. The rest of the statement. Second page, in the memorandum on January 4th, 2007 to City Manager Lynch from Assistant City Manager DPD Director Coggins, Mr. Coggins states, the school committee was briefed on the project and made a decision to take no action. That is not accurate. In 2006, we took no action because there was no action before us to take, Your Honor. But to say that what we did in 2006 applies to 2007 is not an accurate statement. Now, I don't know what can be done. I happened to take a little drive up to the project today. I was not happy. In fact, I could have been seen as a stalker. I was driving the block, and I was not happy. I was not happy about the number of people who were outside on the street, 100 feet from the school. And that is at the unit where it is today. That's not taking into consideration adding 12 more units. I had a conversation with the director of the program last night, and she wanted to assure me that at no time would any sexual predators be on the premises. But the reality is, Your Honor, is they have a feeding program. And the feeding program doesn't ask you who you are when you walk in to get a hot meal. She did say to me that once I've seen you around here for a little while and I recognize a new face, we do try to track down some information on you. That wasn't good enough for me. I am in objection to this project going in. I know that they have achieved a court order. But to state that we took no action and that we are in full agreement to this project is an abhorrent statement. I think this letter soft pedals the statements made by Mr. Vitale. I'd like to use the word lie in there someplace. I don't know if you can work that in somewhere. I don't know how my colleagues feel about it, but I feel that we were, that this august body was abused, and that to make these kinds of statements that we, as the guardians of public safety for our school children, didn't care enough is a disgusting statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary.
I want to echo my colleague's entire statement. It also should be pointed out, just for the record, that the planning board met in January and denied the project. So the planning board took action. there's a court order where this has been approved. I would, if my colleague would want to entertain a motion regarding dealing what we're dealing with now, it is probably to have the DPD, the health, whatever boards would regulate this, come in before our facility subcommittee so we could be really assured, or at least go over what type of inspections or what type of, what should we be looking for, how should we be working with it, how do we deal with what's already been approved by a court order. A court order, it is what it is. We're not going to supersede that. I understand that. But I think we need to at least ensure and make sure our folks at that particular school are cognizant of what's going on and how to prepare for it. And that's pretty simple. I don't know if my colleague would entertain that motion. I could.
You.
And I think at least at that point we can be, I hate the word proactive, but at least we can go forward from what has already occurred at this point and take action where appropriate. Thank you.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'd want to go on the record to say I'm not in favor of this project, nor have I ever been in favor of the project, just as one independent voice here. I do recall the discussion that was taken, but it, as I think Ms. Faticani said, it was dropped because it was going to, in our eyes, not happen, so there was no further follow-up. So for someone to say, maybe this was a public meeting, maybe there was a posting, and since he's trying to use that language for leverage, I think is what he's trying to do, saying, so, well, nobody showed up, so therefore they can't be against it because they didn't show up. That doesn't necessarily mean that's accurate a statement, but I think they're trying to use that at some point to say that, you know, nobody's really against it because they would have been here if they were really against it. So I agree, if we did not receive a notification, I'm not sure exactly the rights of abutters, and, you know, if we are clearly in a butter or because we're across the street, maybe we're not in a butter, I don't know. I would also ask that we possibly maybe have the law department take a look at this as well and understand that the school, where the school zone is and how that all plays out for what type of folks may be at this house. Maybe we still have some ability to look at this and, if possibly, stop it, if that's what it takes. I mean, when this came up just over the weekend, I was astonished to read this and find out that someone's making statements on our behalf. If we had a letter to that effect, I'd say, fine. We don't have a letter saying we're for it or against it, so you can't say, well, that means we're for it, and put that in the in misleading statements. So I would clearly say, and I wouldn't even mind if we all took a vote to say we're against this project, and then that way we could go on the record to say, yes, we are against it. So, I mean, we do have a motion on the floor, but as part of that motion, I wouldn't mind if they want to entertain even amending it further to have the law department take a look at it, and a more comprehensive look at where there is a school in the area, not exactly adjacent, but in the area that there may be some legal ramifications as part of that too. So I'd put that back to the maker of the motion.
So does Mr. Leary want to restate his motion?
I thought you made the motion, but okay.
Well,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
second it. I guess essentially, I mean, I agree with, we should ask for advice from the legal department regarding what exactly, I guess we should start from the beginning. Are we in a butter? We should determine that, whether or not we should be notified. It very well could be that the city is the abutter and that they're the ones who were notified. That's a simple question, and I think the city solicitor could easily address that. I think also that the biggest issue right now, I think a Superior Court judge, if my understanding, I talked to Ms. Barton as well. Superior Court judge has already acted on this. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you have any knowledge of it, but basically they've already addressed it. I think we maybe be able to delay it because if we are in a butter, that we weren't given sufficient or appropriate notice. I think the city solicitor should look in that as well. And if we're not the abutter and the city is, or if we're not supposed to get appropriate notice, obviously we can't stop something at this point. I would be, I think the motion should really at that, but we can make a separate motion regarding rejecting or not, but I think this motion right here should be clearly, we need to sit down with the health department, DPD, or any other city regulatory agencies, the police department, regarding how do we act upon what is already, what's already in place. If the city solicitor deems it appropriate that we should have been notified and sufficient and appropriate notice wasn't made, then we can take action at that point to have our rights heard at that point in time. But I think that question should be made as part of that motion through the city solicitor.
Could I make a suggestion? I think the letter should be sent to put the planning board on notice. I think the issue of lack of notice should be raised in the letter. and then, and that, the sending of the letter should not be delayed during the time which we're seeking advice on what our rights and remedies might be for lack of notice.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Because it may, I don't know where this matter stands before the planning board right now. There was a court decision, I understand, to essentially let the project go forward, but I don't know if the planning board has ruled finally yet. So I do think it's important to put the planning board on notice that, and if the notice is an issue, that we're seeking advice on that.
I agree, Mayor, and I think they have been, the planning board, I believe, if I'm correct, on September 5th, actually made a decision pertaining to the corridor, but I agree with your motion. It's, if I'm incorrect, that'll satisfy that. Thank you.
So, Your Honor.
It's not, I don't think it's a matter of what's correct or not. I think it's just to act as quickly as we can and then not delay further.
So through Your Honor to the superintendent, the letter should also reflect that we are seeking whatever remedy is available to us, and that and so that should also be included in the letter. Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'll second Mr. Leary's motion.
All right, so the motion as modified to send the letter with the modifications suggested this evening, and also to refer the matter to the city solicitor for advice on rights and remedies that the school committee may have. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the comments of my colleagues, but what I wasn't sure of, too, is how much information we actually got on this, you know, who was going there, what the program was about. We did discuss it, as we said, about a year ago, and, you know, the motion was, there was nothing to discuss. And then to have this court order, and I don't know, but is there a lack of communication? How come we didn't know from our planning board? Should we know from them, from DPD, or from the planning board that this got court acceptance? So I don't know that if that's the case, but if this was approved a month ago, we should have known about it.
Well, I think that's the issue that we're referring to the city solicitor. What notice was the committee entitled to, and why wasn't that received? If whatever we were entitled to, why didn't we get it? I mean, sometimes in these, you're only entitled to the notice of the original hearing and not subsequent, but it appears we may not have even got that in this case. Also, there are different notice requirements for different types of permits, too, before the planning board, so I think all the more a reason why we should get sound legal advice.
But not to be, not to overreact, but I would think that when these houses go in, when these group homes go in near schools, I think you should automatically be notified. You should just know who your neighbors are, and to be a good neighbor, and to be respectful on both ends. So, again, I would like an explanation on, and like you said, we're going to get it, but I'd like to know why we weren't notified by anybody, and why we have to hear this at a football game when we're out on a Friday night, and all of a sudden we learn about it. So that's what really ticks me off about it, and it's almost like a lack of respect again to the school committee. So thank you.
I can tell you that the group homes have been the bane of the city council's existence for the entire time I've been on it. We try to get different notice requirements, different regulations in place, and it's there. Many of them are protected by state law. So I wouldn't read too much into the lack of respect to the school committee. I think it's the way these things are treated in general.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So all those in favor of the motion as modified, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Does Mr. McHugh want to put his motion on the floor?
Yes, I'd like to.
I'm going to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to.
I'll second. To begin Mr. McHugh's motion.
Suspension to go up, because we're going past 10 o'clock.
First of all, Your Honor, may I make a motion to go past the 10 o'clock hour?
All right. Motion to go past 10 o'clock by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. McHugh. Do you need a roll call on that?
Second. Roll call? Do you need a roll call?
Ms. Faticante?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Go past the 10 o'clock hour.
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
No.
Miss Doherty.
No.
5 yeas, 2 nays, it passes.
Your Honor, would you entertain a motion to suspend the rules to bring in Mr. McHugh's motion, please?
All right, so moved by Ms. Fattacante, second by
I can second.
Mr. McHugh. Need a roll call on that?
Could you read his
Everybody
motion?
agrees, you don't need a roll call
We all
on that,
agree.
No.
Could you read his motion again?
Well, Mr. McHugh,
I
your
haven't
motion,
made it
please?
yet.
Well,
Can you give me a second?
wait, if there's 2 votes against, that's enough to...
Oh, is it the...
Listen,
Roll call.
Okay, roll call. Ms. Fattacante.
yes.
Mr. Leahy.
What's the roll call on again?
To suspend the rules so somebody
Okay.
can make a
Suspend the rules
motion.
All right,
To
yeah.
allow Mr. McHugh to bring in a motion.
Okay.
I'm going to the car to get it. I'll be right back.
Yes, yes. Yep.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Getting confused.
Mr. McHugh.
Absolutely.
What?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Martin.
No.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Yes. 6 yeas, 1 nay, passes. It's just
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll be brief. As we said, I'd just like to make a motion that the school committee take the position to oppose the Bridgewater, formerly Greater Lynn Mental Health, located at 94/106 Rock Street Permanent Housing Project for 12 permanent housing units proposal. And I'm just recommending that we take a formal position to vote against this project. Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Leahy.
Just one quick comment, though. I can't vote for something that I don't know what the project's about, so
It's
I understand what your proposal is, but I don't really know what it is, so I can't vote yes for it.
Ms. Doherty.
I have to concur with my colleague. I do not know enough about this project to vote no on it right now. Thank you.
Well,
Through Your Honor, when
Ms. Fattacante.
I spoke to Ann Barton, her words to me were, the people who would be living here would have mental illness, alcohol abuse, substance abuse issues, and they would be some of them would be former convicts. And they would be living in this facility, this 12-unit facility, in an attempt to then go back out into the community.
Mr. Leary.
I'm going to vote yes for the motion, okay? The reason for it is there's a school here. Obviously, there's a need for safe haven locations in our city. That's just fact. What we're doing now, from what I understand from talking to Ann Barton and others, is pure conjecture. A court has already made a determination. We're not going to change, I don't believe, any of the information that's already come forward. So I want to. The reason why I'm voting yes for it is because there's a school that is right almost, I don't know, within 100, 200, with 300 yards away from this location. That's enough, I think. Thanks.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes, I was hoping to be brief, but there are some. I think there's 2 reasons. I think we've heard what's happening. It's right next to the school in my eyes. I don't need the people to go over it. We have children walking to and from this facility. We have children in the neighborhood. I don't begrudge a facility in the city. I just don't think it needs to be next to a school, number one. And then the audacity of a lawyer to basically say that we're for this, I think that's the other part of the equation why I made the motion. It's not that I'm against if they were there and they were, I understand some of the people's feelings that they don't know enough about the project or anything else. I just think the fact that an attorney trying to push a project through is using every ploy he can do on top of what's going on there is not right. So the principle in my eyes is he's saying we're for it. I say we send a strong statement saying we're not for it. And I think with that I'd just move the question so we can move on. Thank you.
Well, so we're not going to let anyone else comment?
No, I guess I'll withdraw the motion to move the question.
I'm going to vote opposed. I'm opposed to this because I think it's inconsistent with the motion we just approved, which was to seek legal advice on what our rights and remedies are. I don't mean to be, as a no vote is to be construed as that we're in favor of this, but not opposed at this time.
Still want a roll call?
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Roll call.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy,
No.
Mr. Leary. Yes. Miss Martin,
No.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
No.
Miss Doherty.
No.
3 yeas, 4 nays, it's defeated.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the convention conference request. There are 3. A motion to approve the convention conference
Take them as a whole,
request.
Your Honor?
Motion to take all 3 together by Ms.
Yes.
Fattacante, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? They'll be considered together. Motion to approve
Motion to approve?
by Ms. Fattacante, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, no,
The,
but this has to be a roll
oh,
call
I'm
for
sorry.
money. It has
Roll
to-
call.
okay.
Roll call on the request.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary. Yes. Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Motion to adjourn, Your Honor?
Motion adjourned by Ms. Fattacante, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned.
Okay.